Hey, this is the Fight Nerd, and joining me now is the owner of the UFC, Lorenzo Fertitta. Lorenzo, how are you today?
Good, how you doing?
Pretty good. Now, you guys are here today to talk about what you're doing to help push mixed martial arts into New York City and state. So give us a little brief overview of what you guys are planning to do.
You know, we've been working over the last 3 or 4 years very hard to educate legislators on the evolution of the sport of mixed martial arts, why it should be regulated here, the benefits of what the state of New York would see, as well as the city of New York, as well as all of upstate New York from an economic impact standpoint, and the fact that we've got an impeccable track record. We've thrown nearly 2,000 fights really without any major incident, and you know, there's 48 states that have athletic commissions. 44 have legalized mixed martial arts. What's the issue? Why not New York?
What do you think actually is the issue that New York still doesn't have it yet?
You know, obviously, if we knew exactly what the issue was, I think it'd probably be easier to get something done. Unfortunately, we don't. We haven't really been able to get any answers. From my standpoint, I think part of the problem, New Yorkers, we're literally dealing with perceptions that have lasted nearly 20 years old. You know, back from when the UFC started in the early 90s, when there literally were no rules, back to where a lot of these legislators and just general business leaders, all they remember are those key things, like when John McCain said, this is human cockfighting. There are no rules. Somebody's going to die. And they don't understand that the sport has become a sport, that it is highly regulated, that it has evolved, and that what they banned in the early 90s is nothing like what is actually taking place today. It's our job to educate them and let them know what has happened.
Now, there's a lot of grassroots companies out there that are helping also to push MMA in New York. Are you guys interested in working with those grassroots organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're willing to work with anybody. I think, you know, we'll put out the branch and, you know, like to get together with the grassroots people, work on the grass tops, and just hit it from every angle. I mean, that's really what has to happen to make this a reality.
Now, Zuffa has spent a few $1 million already over the last few years trying to lobby in the legislature and spending money here and there to help push the sport into New York. Have you guys been spending your money wisely, do you think, or are there things you could do that you haven't done yet?
I don't know. I mean, may not have been wisely so far because it's not legal yet, but, you know, sometimes it's just a process and it takes time. You know, if you think about legislative process last year, there was a lot of things going on. You know, they were trying to get the budget passed, and it took a lot of time, and there's just other issues. Sometimes it's just a matter of the right timing more than anything, and we're hoping that this year that the process will go a little smoother and that, you know, it'll happen the way that it should, get the sport legalized.
Now, beyond New York, what are the plans of globalization for mixed martial arts and the UFC?
Well, obviously, you've heard, you know, we've now expanded offices into Europe. We have offices in Beijing. We announced we're going to do a fight in Rio, which will be our first fight down in Brazil. So we're kind of expanding on all different fronts. And we beefed up the organization. We have a commitment to holding more fights in all of these different areas. It's just going to take a little bit of time to get the strategy put in place.
Are we ever going to see a UFC in Japan?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, what about International Ultimate Fighter Series? I know we've got, you know, the American Tough, which has international fighters, but what about Ultimate Fighter Series with just Mexican fighters in Mexico or just Canadian fighters in Canada? Any chance of seeing that?
Yeah, we are expecting that we would announce an International Ultimate Fighter by the end of the year. Absolutely.
All right, now, something else I want to ask you, just a general business question.
Yeah.
What would be the one piece of advice that you've heard someone tell you in your lifetime that has lived with you to this day and that you use every day?
Okay, I guess it would be, and this is really kind of holds true to the UFC and the way that we run this business, because we started literally with 3-4 people when we started the business, is that no matter how big your company gets, how successful you become, never stop being a micromanager. There's always got to be things in your business that you're passionate about. You know, and a perfect example is that every single little detail of the live event, we literally go through A to Z, whether it be the, you know, interviews, the introductions, the walk-in music. I mean, it would be easy just to say, oh, somebody else will take care of it. But, you know, it's one of those passionate things that we really believe and are really passionate about the product, and we're fanatical about making sure that the product is perfect, or as perfect as it can be, the way it's presented. And I think that the minute you stop being a micromanager about some of those things is the minute that you lose your edge, and that's when competition comes in and can really give you a scare.
Now, you mentioned the competition. Is there room for competition in mixed martial arts, or should there be just one major company?
Well, certainly there's room. I mean, there's competition now. I mean, everybody talks about the UFC, but the reality is there's no barrier to entry. Anybody can go start a league tomorrow. You know, all you got to do is go file an application with the State Athletic Commission and start promoting fights. With that said, I do think that there's benefit to having an organization like the UFC so that you can get the best fighters together and have them fight each other. The benefit that we have, for instance, versus boxing is we can actually make the fights that the fans want to see, right? Boxing still can't make Mayweather and Pacquiao because you have all these different forces working against it. But the reality is, for the most part, we can make most of the fights. And if we have the fighters under one umbrella, we can do this. No different than the NFL. The best teams play the best teams. If the football teams were in different leagues, they wouldn't be playing each other. We wouldn't know who was best. So there is a benefit to the fans to having an organization like the UFC.
So ultimately, the goal is to get the best fighters in the best spot.
Correct. Correct.
Now, last question for you. Since you guys just celebrated the 10th anniversary of the Zuffa-owned UFC, was there ever a day in those 10 years where you just kind of said, I don't want to do an MMA anymore, I'm done with the sport?
Yeah, there was a number of those days. I mean, everybody knows, or a lot of people know the story, that when we started, the first 4 years it was brutal. It was a lot of long days, a lot of hard work, and not a lot of a light at the end of the tunnel. We lost a ton of money, and we just didn't know if this thing was ever going to turn. We thought we had a good idea, but maybe it was just the wrong time. And, we stuck it out. There was the day I called Dana and said, Dana, we want to sell the company, get us out. He made a few phone calls. It didn't seem like that, even after doing that, it was the right time to give up. We weren't willing to tap out. We gutted it through, put up more money, did the Ultimate Fighter, and, became a success. So.
Well, sounds good. Thank you very much, Lorenzo. They're tearing down the set behind us right now. You can't really see it, but we got to get out of here. So thank you, Lorenzo, very much.
Thank you.